Hey, friends and future authors. This is Lynn Smargis back for another episode of Publishing for Professionals. I just recently returned from a trip to the Big Island, which I absolutely love. So you are seeing I'm sporting my Hawaiian suntan right now for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. Welcome to our book blueprint episode. I am so super stoked about this episode. I love these. They're so much fun. But before we jump into today's show, I want to give a big welcome back to my returning listeners and a big welcome to my new listeners. Thanks for stopping by and checking out my podcast. Make sure to rate and review not Travel Gluten Free, sorry, Publishing for Professionals. Travel Gluten Free is my other podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast players. All right, I hope you're ready to take notes today, my friends, because today I'm going to be joined by my book blueprint guest, AJ Tyler. After practicing for 36 years, he sold his consulting business to a public company. Tyler satisfied his need to write by creating innovative and imaginative business plans for his clients. Then he pursued a restaurant career for 9 years while secretly working on his manuscripts. In 2024, Tyler made his initial writing breakthrough with his book, Immigrant Men, which was released in June 2024 and reached #1 in 2 categories on Amazon. He turned his skills to fiction with the publication of his first novel, Death Insured, in October 2024. This book is a first in a series of Alan Miller novels. Tyler resides in Fort Lauderdale, Florida with his rescue dog, Coco, and is an avid sports fan and rarely misses a game of his favorite team, which is also my favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Go Phillies. Go Philly. So AJ is moving along the path of publishing and has some questions for me today. AJ, welcome to Publishing for Professionals.
Good morning, Lynn, and thank you for having me. And even though I'm a little depressed because the Super Bowl will be played without Philadelphia, I still will watch the game, probably.
Yes.
in any event, having gone through the process, one of the things I'm experiencing, and I'm sure a lot of your followers also are experiencing, who've published already, is the proliferation of emails, Instagram posts, Instagram messages, Facebook messages from people purporting to do reviews for fee, saying they have thousands of followers, or book clubs asking for money or asking for you to pay them to do book trailers for free book club presentation, when in fact they are, I don't believe they're real. And in many cases, I found out they've been scammers. How is it that you deal with that?
Yeah. So if I get any type of solicitation like that, I will go online and verify that they are first of all, a real business, and anybody can have a website. So I would check with oh gosh, there's a National Writers Associations, but any of the big writers associations would know if it's real or not. I know there's one that is legit. It's called Written Word Media. But I would check around with national writing organization. Like I'm part of the Romance Writers of America. There's also the Editorial Freelancers Association. And also too, if they're claiming to be a part of a company, I would go on LinkedIn, find someone who's part of the company and be like, hey, this person reached out to me. Is this person a team member of your company? Is this legitimate? And just ask several different sources. Don't rely on one, because one source might be playing the game. But yeah, you can't typically trust people who reach out to you like that, because 99% of those people are just going to be scam artists that are trying to take your money, and they're either not going to deliver the service or they're not going to deliver a quality service, and they're just looking to take your money and leave. So I would say for people that are emailing you, and you did not reach out to them first, I would say don't go with them in general.
Okay. And one other piece of that is I always ask for an author reference. And they always give the name of an author that if you go on Amazon, you can find the author and find the book they reference. But the other thing that is, have you ever had this, or have any of your people had this, where they give you an email address and it doesn't match the email address for the author on Amazon or wherever?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I would say if you find the author on Amazon, go to their website and hit up their contact form and say, hey, this person said that they did book marketing for you, or you joined their book club. Can you tell me, like, is this a legitimate person, or are they just using your book? Because I mean, they could just pick any book off of Amazon and give you some email address they found on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's not hard to get people's email address. So yeah, don't assume because they've just given you an email address that it is legit, because that's really easy to fake.
Okay. Second question I have for you is, I used a hybrid publisher for both books I was involved in. And I didn't understand and still don't fully grasp the difference between fully self-publishing, hybrid publishing. Obviously, mainstream traditional publishing is hard because you need an agent or access, and they get a million submissions. But how do you make that choice between self-publishing, true self-publishing, and hybrid publishing, and what should you be looking for in that process?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So with hybrid publishing, the main difference between hybrid and traditional publishing is, with hybrid publishing, you have more control over, like, who you get to pick your book, how your book is written. Traditional publishers and some hybrid publishers too, depending on who you're working with, they want to, a lot of times they'll want to mainstream your book. Like, I was literally just reading an article right before we hopped on this interview on Hacker News, which is a technology site. And this a guy who's in the field of tech was writing a book, and a publisher reached out to him and said, hey, we want to publish your book. And they publish tech books. And AI came out and they're like, oh, we want you to write a chapter on AI. He's like, that's not what I do. Like, that's not what this book is about. And they kept harassing him about it. So depending on the publisher, so a hybrid publisher, the reason why they're hybrid is because they don't do all, like, the full thing that a traditional publisher will do. So they offer a lot of the services, but you basically get to pick and choose, like, which services you want from the hybrid publisher.
Right.
They typically have, I mean, as far as like distribution and stuff like that, you can do anything that you want as far as distribution. The only difference really between self-publishing and going with a publisher is that that publisher may do some of the things that you would normally do, but the thing is that they're going to expect your book to sound a certain way, to be a certain way, and they may want to change your book. And so if that's the case and you don't want your book changed, then stick with self-publishing. The other thing with going with a publisher is that you're on their timeline, not yours. And so the other piece that the guy was writing this article was saying, is that his editor kept bugging him all the time to write his book. And, you go through ebbs and flows with writing, and they were just really obnoxious about it. So with a traditional or a hybrid publisher, you're on their schedule. So for example, one of my friends in the podcasting industry, he was writing a book. The publisher approached him, said it's a hybrid publisher. They wanted to publish his book. He said, fine. They said, you need to have it written in 6 months. So he got the book written in 6 months. And then it took them 1.5 years to edit his book. Yeah, okay. Which is absolutely ridiculous. It should not take anybody 1.5 years to edit a 40,000 word nonfiction book. So then he had to wait 1.5 years to even like look at the first copy after his editing. And then they made this horrible book cover for him that was literally just block letters. It was super boring. So anyway, you don't have a lot of creative control over your book. I would say if you want creative control and you want to do it on your own timeline, and you're a resourceful person, just go with self-publishing, because then you can do it on your own timeline. You don't have to worry about someone else trying to change your voice or your story to make it sound different, because that's the whole purpose of your book, right? Is that it's in your voice, in your story, because everybody tells a story, but everybody tells it differently because they have different personal experience, different style writing, things like that. So, I mean, and some people like the validation of having a publisher pick up their book, but if you don't need that validation, right? Like, I self-publish all my books. And honestly, the whole thing is people are like, oh, I like that, because then when people open up the cover, they'll see it's a publisher. Well, guess what? 90% of people who read books are not going to open up the cover and be like, oh, this book isn't from Penguin Random House, I'm not going to read it, right? So
well, if you're that attached to your publisher, the books you read, then God bless you.
Yes.
But I don't know 90% of the books that I've fallen in love with in my lifetime. I have no idea who published them. So. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, people think that's a deciding factor for people, but for readers, it really is not. It's just mostly like, is your content good? Does it look professional? Is it well edited? Does it sound right? Does it flow well? is the information valuable? If it's nonfiction, if it's fiction, is the arc plot good? Is it a good storyline? Are your characters well developed? So it just really depends on the quality of your work.
Oh, great. And then I guess as a follow-up to that question, from a marketing perspective, um, as you said, you've self-published everything, which means I'm assuming you've gone through the least expensive process to get the book ready. Then the marketing begins. So what's that marketing process for somebody who's writing a book? Like, how do you begin that? I mean, because to me, that's probably the most daunting part of being a writer, is figuring out how to get my book out there.
Right. So the reason I actually chose self-publishing wasn't because it was the least expensive process. The reason I chose it is because I did not want to give any of my creative control over to anyone else. Like, I wanted to design my own cover. And so I like self-publishing because I get it on my timeline. It's my creative control. And I also, like, for my most recent book that I'm writing right now, which is a fiction book, I still hire editors for my books because, I'm inside my head, so I can't correctly edit my own book. So I still do invest money in my book and hire editors. But back to your question, which is, sorry, can you repeat your question one more time, AJ?
It's how do you begin? The marketing process is daunting because there's so many avenues and so much money that can be spent. And it is a cost benefit thing for a writer. I mean, I don't want to invest endless dollars to get more people to read the book, but I know that if I get 10 people to read the book and they all write a great review, whether it's on Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub or whatever, we'll get it there. But how do you get it into the hands of people initially, especially when you're a first-time writer?
Yeah. So what you want to do is kind of reverse engineer, think about this, right? Like, first of all, you have to think about, like, how much money do you want to invest in marketing?
Right.
And you can do a lot with, a small investment. It just depends on, how much elbow grease you want to put into it and how dedicated you are to marketing your book. Like, ideally, it's a good idea to start marketing 6 months ahead of time. And I don't mean like do a whole big blown campaign, but just let people know, like, hey, I'm writing this book. This is what it's about. Like, put it out on your social media. Let people know that you are writing the book, that you might be looking for beta readers soon. For my fiction book that I'm currently writing, we're planning on publishing in April. We're going through our dev edit and our beta readers right now. And so we're doing that during the month of February. And so, you have to figure out, one, what your budget is. And then two, you have to reverse engineer. There's like, what platforms are you already on, right? So you can start new social media platforms, but I would say use whatever you have a following on. So if that's Blue Sky or YouTube or whatever it is. So, figure out what you have and what do you like to do, right? Because if you're like, oh, I hate making video, and then you make a whole marketing campaign around doing video, you're never going to do it, right? So, like, if you like doing audio, then do audio clips and put it on social, whatever it is you like to do. If it's, I would definitely recommend doing a marketing campaign on Substack, because there's a ton of authors and writers on books on Substack. There's also like BookTube and Book Talk on TikTok. And so figure out what you like to do and develop your campaign around that. There's a lot of, like, I know Lisa Jones, who was a previous guest on my show, has like a weekend author, market your book in a weekend. So she has a whole weekend plan where you can sit down Friday, Saturday, Sunday, knock out your whole book marketing thing, get it all planned out for the next 6 months. So something like that. So that's an online course that runs between $200 and $300, depending on what level you pick.
Wow.
And then there's all the way from that to, like, multi-thousands of dollars programs where companies like Hybrid Publishers and other book marketing companies will market your book. However, I will say this: if you do have a bigger budget and you want to market your book, do not go with somebody who does book marketing and something else. Like, I do book marketing and YouTube growth and blah, 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 right? Because they're not going to do a good job for you. Like, I would say, if you are looking for someone to do book marketing, get somebody who's in the publishing industry, who knows what they're doing, who can show you statistics and numbers of clients that they've had in the past. But yeah, I would say, you can make your own marketing plan. Like, you don't have to go with a big company to make your own marketing plan. All a marketing plan is just planning out like how you're going to advertise, when you're going to do that. And there's a lot of things you can schedule out. Like, you don't have to
Right.
sit there and post like live, right? So you can get a scheduler like Later, or Hero Post, or any of those other social media schedulers to schedule out your
Right.
content. And then, the other thing I would also recommend too is guesting on podcasts, because that's a really great way to promote your book. And there's different platforms that you can do that on as well. But I would not hire somebody to get me onto podcasts, because typically those people are scammers, and they will take thousands of your dollars and will get you on 2 or 3 podcasts. And
Right.
that's not a good value for your money.
Got it. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, my friends, we're going to take a super quick break right here. But when we come back, we are going to continue our book blueprint chat with AJ. And AJ's got some more questions for me. So we'll be right back in just a minute. All right, my friends, we are back with our book blueprint episode with AJ Tyler, who is my guest today. AJ, these have been some fabulous questions. I absolutely love these. So what else do you have for me? What other questions do you have about writing and publishing?
I actually have another one that goes along with marketing, and then I have one about the creativity and writing process. And the last marketing related question is, how do you feel about all the book awards that are out there that you can apply and pay for? International Impact, Xanadu, companies like that do awards. I mean, you have to submit. You're one of many, but if you win, does it really bring any cachet to your website or to your social media marketing, or is it really just fluff, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on what you're looking to do with your book, right? So like, if you are just looking to write like a business book for a business card, having an award isn't going to really make a difference for you, right? But if you're an author and if you want to make a living out of being an author, or you want to write a series of books, right? Like, having that award is a good idea, because then it shows people, it gives you kind of like social proof of like, oh, I've got this award. And yes, a lot of the awards, like, there are free awards that you don't have to pay for, but those are typically not going to be like really responsive, or they're not going to be really big awards. So I would say, yes, if you are going to do awards, put aside $1,000 or $2,000 to invest in applying for those awards, because they are going to be, there's going to be time and money to apply for those. And you obviously may or may not get it. But if you do get an award, that, especially if you're in fiction, that's a big deal, because that separates you from other fiction writers, because fiction is much more saturated field. So if you're in a saturated category or niche like fiction, then I would say, yes, a book award would probably be a good way to go.
Okay.
And a good investment.
Now on to the writing process itself, which is always the hardest. So I'm a fiction writer. I write murder mysteries. One of the challenges I face, and what I'm kind of want to understand, how do you keep the ideas fresh? Not the way that you can commit murder only so many ways, but I mean, a car, a gun, a knife, drugs, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the backstory that leads to it that I think makes the novel compelling, and all of the interpersonal relationships. And how do you do that and keep that fresh as you're writing? What's the process to do that, or what do you do for you to be able to do that?
Yeah. So what I do, actually, one of the things I like to do, especially for my fiction book, is I go on YouTube and look at like shorts or like videos that I'm looking at. Like, if I'm writing a specific scene or a specific piece of my book, I like to watch those and get some ideas from just like watching other videos and what other people produce, and see like, oh, and also watching something I normally wouldn't watch, right? Because if I've watched something a million, 10 times, like, why would I watch it again? But like, watching something that's more outside my box that I normally wouldn't watch, that relates to like what I'm writing, that really helps, because that's going to give me some new ideas. Also, like, going on, like, finding podcast episodes that are story podcasts like true crime podcasts, right? So if you're looking for specifically like, different scenes or whatever, just search up, whatever true crime types that you're looking for and listen to episodes that have, different murder mystery scenes or different,
Right.
ways to kill people, things like that. So, and that gives you more ideas, right? And then write those down, because obviously one of the things people are like, oh, I'll remember it. You'll never remember it. So make sure you write those down and have like you can have an idea journal, or just like have a journal that you write in all the time.
Right.
Or if you put it in your phone, but make sure you write those down. So listening to podcasts is a great way to do that, like listening to specific episodes, and jump around to different podcasts to see what you like. And obviously, if you're listening to something and you don't like it, just skip it and go on to the next one, because there's a lot of content out there that you can listen to. Also, just going on and asking people for ideas, like asking your followers, like, hey, I'm writing this scene, blah, blah, blah. What would you like to see? And then do a poll, and then, have some suggestions, and then put other there, and then see what people put for other. That's always a great way to get new ideas, because if these are people who are already reading your material, they're
Right.
they're obviously your key avatar, your key reader. So they're the ones you're going to want to focus on. Like, okay, this person wants this. Let's try this in my story. So those are a few ways. The other thing I would always recommend to people is, when you're writing, make sure you take breaks, like every hour. Just get up and walk, like go for a 5-minute walk, or do something like physically active. Because if you just sit for a long period of time, it's hard to get new material to come up.
Right.
You get stuck, a great thing to do, just sit down and write for like 10 minutes. It's called morning journal. I call it anytime journal, because it's just sitting down and the act of writing for 10 minutes, like physically handwriting, helps get all of the information out of the front of your head where you're thinking, and gives your head space to get that new idea going.
Oh, interesting. And I guess in that same vein, I'm writing my first novel is one of 3, because Alan Miller, the protagonist, is a series of novels where he is involved. There are other characters in that first novel. How do you decide when to kill off a character or bring a character back? Which I'm wrestling with right now as I'm working on book number 2.
That is a great question. And that's actually a little bit outside of my realm, but just from being I don't do murder mystery. I do a lot of sci-fi, I listen a lot, read a lot of sci-fi. But I would say just don't kill a character. Don't kill a character that everybody absolutely loves.
Right.
And a good time to bring, I feel like, just personally, a good time to bring a character back is when people are least expecting it.
Right. And that's kind of been my thought process, but you never know. So
yeah. When people are least expecting it, like they think they're long dead, they don't think there's no way that person's coming back. That's a great time to bring it back, because they're like, what plot twist?
Wow, I thought he was dead. I thought he went over the cliff in a bus, and it turns out he didn't. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, he jumped off the bus right before it went off the cliff.
Right, exactly, and rolled along the ground. Exactly. Yeah. So
yeah.
Great. Well, that's very, very helpful. I appreciate that.
Awesome. You're welcome. Well, AJ, I know people are going to want to find out more about you and your books. For people on YouTube, I just put the banner up so you can see AJ's website. AJ, for the people on audio, you want to talk about where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Right. If you're interested in reaching out to me or finding out more about myself and my books, you can go to www.ajtyler, TYLER, AUTHOR.com. And the reason that I spell that out, aside from the fact that Lynn suggested it, is because I had a friend who I met in the building I used to live in who wanted to get my book, and they thought I said AJ Taylor. And so they went and looked up AJ Taylor on Amazon, and it turns out AJ Taylor has written 30 books of erotica. And while I'm sure he made a lot of money doing it, I didn't get any of it. And so I laughed because the next time I was out walking my dog, I ran into this woman, and she said, I thought you wrote murder mysteries. I ordered one of your books. It was all erotica. I said, no, Tyler, not Taylor. So AJTYLER, AUTHOR.com.
Awesome. So if you're looking for murder mystery, AJ Tyler. If you're looking for erotica, AJ Taylor.
Yes. And by the way, he doesn't give me any money no matter how many times I tell that story. So
I think you should reach out to him and definitely get a commission.
I might, but thank you so much, Good. I appreciate that.
All right, AJ, thanks so much for being on the show. This has been super great. All right, my friends, remember, I love working with authors to get past their mindset, writing, and publishing hurdles so they can have a smooth and confident publishing journey. So if you're not sure where to start, go to www.writeforyou.me and book your complimentary discovery call. I'm ready to stand by your side and walk you through your publishing process. Until next week, this is Lynn Liquity, reminding you to keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep creating. Your book is waiting to be born.